Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night once again to all of you who are subscribed or happen to stumble across this, and I give you very, very much thanks for this. Um, I have I haven't, had posted any content or like videos, reactions, or anything in a little while because for some reason I've been having issues with other embedded videos from YouTube or whatever, the sound not playing uh, when when I'm uploading after I've uploaded it to YouTube, and I'm still not sure yet quite what it is. So I haven't wanted to do that, but hopefully I'll figure something else out. But anyways, so as the title says, this is going to be about Dark Phoenix. Spoilers. So I saw Dark Phoenix a couple hours ago, and I have to say it was okay. I mean, it wasn't terrible. It wasn't great. It was okay. It was better than Apocalypse. Well, I don't know about yeah, near it. I would say it maybe edges out Apocalypse by just this much. Um, and we're gonna go through the movie, but I don't know with the with ever since they rebooted the X-Men with First Class, and then of course Days of Future Past, Apocalypse. There's I guess you could say been a certain style, a certain vibe to how those movies were done. And granted, yes, those were all done by Bryan Singer. I get that. But, he set the tone, if you will, for these characters and whatnot. And I know this is Simon Kinberg's first directorial debut movie, and I mean, even though he's written other of the X-Men movies, and so I would think the tone should be similar as well, seeing as he's written some of the other ones or contributed to them as well. But I don't know, I just had a slightly different feeling than the uh, the past, more recent iterations of the X-Men. Um, okay. So first of all, we I miss I was like I probably missed like the first 10 minutes or so. So granted, I'm not sure how exactly it starts off, but when I came in, it was the at the seminal scene from the comic storyline, the animated series, if you will, or in this version of it, which they're in space and rescuing the astronauts, and you know Jean's trying to hold things together, and you know looks like she's going to sacrifice herself or whatever. Excuse me. And of course, we see the Phoenix Force, or at that time, I guess they think like the solar flare, cosmic rays, whatever. Um, engulf her. She should be dead. Um, Nightcrawler pops back out to space to get her, brings her back. She's alive. So that's all good. Back to Earth. Um, and she's checked out, but V says she's more powerful than he's ever seen, and everything. It's like, okay, all right. Um, and you see things like Raven Mystique is getting, I guess, becoming more disenfranchised with Charles, his reaction, because apparently in the years since, of course, Days of Future Past, and then Apocalypse and everything, which is, I think, roughly 10 to 15 years. And then this, because again, if I remember right, let's see. Uh, First Class took place in the 70s. Days of Future Past, or 60s, end of the 60s. Days of Future Past took place in the 70s. Cuban Missile Crisis. Apocalypse took place in the 80s. and this is supposed to take place in the 90s. So you're looking at a 20 to 30-year gap, and of course, all our actors look pretty much the same. So that's whatever. Suspension of disbelief. Whatever. But in that however much 5 10 years that have passed since Apocalypse, um, the world, the X-Men, apparently they are. I mean, Charles has the president on speed dial, so they become more accepted and whatnot. And he even jokes about it when he goes to a awards dinner or whatnot. And Raven seems to think that it's all about his ego, that he's like so comfortable with that now, and it's that he's willing to put the students, everyone in danger. And then of course Charles makes a point, but it's better than the treatment that how we were being treated before, which is a suitable point. Um, but anyway, so there's the beginnings of a rift there, and we see there's like a bonfire party, which we have a little, I guess we can call it cameo for what's obvious Dazzler. I mean, no speaking, no really display of power. I guess you just see her kind of dancing, singing to herself, and like I said, some light around her. So I guess it's supposed to be symbolic of her power. But if you know the character of Dazzler, she has her mutant ability is to turn sound into light. So, which again, she used as a pop star and everything. And even though it was obviously Dazzler, because the way she looked kind of had like a disco outfit with blue eyeshadow and this and that, but it was slightly out of place for the rest of the movie. So, but anyways, I mean, it's a cool little nod, and love seeing Dazzler. I wish it would have been in a better capacity, if you will. And that's something we'll comment on more later. The usage of characters in this thing. Um, anyways, and then Jean has, I guess, a flare of Phoenix power, uncontrollable, little accident. Then she realizes, she can't control it, so she needs to leave. She leaves, um, goes to where Magneto is, who apparently he has his own little mutant homeland sanctuary, and yeah, I mean it's okay. As far as that, but oh well, sorry. Before that, she runs off because she hears her father's voice, who she thought was dead, which Charles told her after she, spoiler, accidentally killed her mother. um, and her father didn't know how to handle her, so Xavier took her in. And she finds out the truth of all that. She goes nuts, or going more towards nuts. Um, and yeah, we see a confrontation with the X-Men trying to bring her home, and Mystique tries to talk her down. She ends up getting killed in the fray, if you will. She's this close to, you know, touching Jean, holding, giving her a hug, bringing her back in or whatever. Jean pushes her away, ends up killing her, which was more or less revealed in the trailer. So it was like, whatever. And again, Jennifer Lawrence is. I love Jennifer Lawrence, but you know, Apocalypse, she seemed to be checking out a bit. So all the more here. I guess she just didn't really want to be in it that much, or maybe it was part of the storyline to begin with. Who knows? Anyways, so after that, like I said, she goes to Magneto to get help, and um, the military comes. It's of course this whole thing, and Magneto ends up trying to save them from Jean trying to destroy him, and that's the thing. I understand Phoenix is supposed to be an entity, a being of raw power, of as she's exposed to emotion, total joy, passion, and destruction. But it seemed like the way it was portrayed here that again, which was, I mean, not a, I, I'd like to think great representation of the Phoenix as a cosmic force. Um, just as evil power, when it is kind of hinted by Jessica Chastain's character, that again, it is a power of life, death, and rebirth. That's why it's being sought by her, um, and her forces. So, and I'll say this here as I was kind of thinking, again, having grown up, reading the comics, being aware of, well, I think I'm trying to remember which came first. Did I actually see some of the comic Phoenix, or or did I see the animated? I'm pretty sure I did get to see the comics first, but maybe it was vice versa. So I'll say this, I knew, more or less how this was going to go, and even from, seeing the trailers and stuff, but, there was always the hope that somehow after the debacle that is the last stand, that, when I found out after Apocalypse, when we saw at the end battle, Jean manifests the Phoenix, was hoping that when they did come to Dark Phoenix, we would get Dark Phoenix proper. you know, Something that's like this. I mean, where you see that power raging, oozing inside of her. And what we got was this. Again, as I'm saying, you look at the you see here the way the poster is, kind of like the dichotomy, her split between herself, Jean, in the new X-Men comics. I mean uniforms, which weren't that bad. But like as someone else I know from well, I don't know, but I mean as on uh, Collider in their non-spoiler review at first, I remember someone mentioning that I think it was Dorian, that like I said, at the end of Apocalypse, we see them in, closer to their comic like, more like their Jim Lee, um, X-Men costumes. And it would have been cool to see them in those a bit again. I know it's been a time shift and everything, but, just seeing them all in the standard, um, uh, new X-Men. I believe it, like I said, that was from the X's for Extinction. The whole storyline with Cassandra Nova. Uniforms was and then like I said, kind of like on the other side, we have kind of an outfit reminiscent of Famke Jensen in X-Men: The Last Stand, just this kind of trench coat along with her shirt and um, jeans, pants, whatever. Which again, Sophie Turner rocks. She's a beautiful woman. She's a great actress and all that. But still, that is not the Phoenix that, Dark Phoenix that we have, depicted in the picture most on the right and underneath. I mean, when there was that, the middle, poster, it gave more hopes that we would get a depiction of Phoenix like the other two we see here from the cartoon and comic versions. But, alas, it wasn't meant to be. And, there have been so many issues with this movie. I knew that wasn't happening. But, anyways, that's my little gripe. Anyways, so after that, Jean tries to go into hiding, and Jessica Chastain's character, which we find out, I forget what the actual name was. I'm not sure if they actually said it in the movie or not. I think like Vox or Buck or something like that. Um, they are they're aliens. They're the Dabari, which, if I remember right in the comics, their planet was destroyed by Jean when she first became Dark Phoenix and, temporary insanity before she came back to Earth. And in the '90s cartoon as well. So that was an interesting nod. Um, and of course they say in this movie, when she's explaining what the Phoenix is, did say that their planet was destroyed. So that's interesting. Again, an interesting nod, but yeah. But so we have that. Then we have Beast. What's the defect to Magneto side, if you will? To again, and as opposed to in past iterations, again, Magneto's not just a total, villain trying to. Okay, let's see. We'll say from First Class, you know, and Days of Future Past, his position more of like I'm taking out these fools and everything to reach what I want. He's more as with Apocalypse, that when you see him at first before Apocalypse enlists him to be a horseman, where he has his life, he's just trying to live his life and everything, and then things happen and to turn him bad. And this one again, he has his homeland, that a bit of an area that he was granted, so they could live in peace. And then again, then Gene comes, brings the military to his doorstep, and after Hank tells her that it was Raven that she killed, the blood that he sees, he's like, okay, that's it, she's got to go. They go to New York to confront Jean to kill her, but that of course that ain't happening. And again, we had a nice action scene with them, Magneto and his forces against the X-Men to get to Jean and everything. I guess that was supposed to be kind of the substitute for the battle with the Shi'ar Guard, that the Imperial Guard that we have in the comics in the 90s, which again, it would have been so awesome. Again, I understand this being what ended up being the last Fox X-Men movie between the merger, and it might have been anyways beforehand. We weren't getting to see the Shi'ar and the more cosmic space element, because there's a lot of story behind that. Of course, Professor Xavier and Lalandra, and then her time as the Phoenix, which again I would have loved to see her time embracing her power as a Phoenix before she goes insane, and all that. So they just condensed it again into, I hate to put it this way, but seriously, again, as I watched it, so many cues and things that kind of made this like Last Stand 2.0 or maybe 2.5. But anyways, so and that's one thing when Magneto goes to uh, you know to kill Jean. He faces Jean. Obviously, Jean's more powerful, knocks him out the way. Xavier gets there to try to talk her down, and Jean, using her power, makes him walk up the stairs, which was a very weird scene, but kind of powerful and had a point. And you know, there's a scene where she's lifting Charles up, and you see like black veins and stuff, and I'm just like in my head, I'm like, I know they're not going to do this, but please, I mean, it's so reminiscent of In the Last Stand when Jean did that. They're trying to come to help her slash deal with her, and she picks Charles up. In the Last Stand, of course, obliterates him, which she obliterates many people, just like in the Last Stand. But anyways, and she talks her down a little bit, and then Jessica Chastain's character takes the Phoenix from her. So I'm still not understanding exactly how that works, because the whole thing with the Jean Phoenix relationship is she, as one of the most powerful beings, human beings, or in the galaxy, with her powers and whatnot, she is suited for the Phoenix. So I guess in this world, just anybody can, because I guess the Phoenix has had various hosts in the comics and whatnot, but still, none have ever been able to contain the power and you know were chosen the way Jean has been. But anyways, um, so we have that whole thing, and then they get captured by the military, and then they're sought by the Dabari. And like I said, this whole train sequence, which is again purportedly the third act, which they had to change for originally it was going to be in space, but I guess because of too many similarities to Captain Marvel, they changed it. Which I'm like, well, one, they made their movie first, merger or no merger. So why would they do that? Two, again, kind of reminiscent of The Last Stand, the transport containing mutants, yada yada yada, and so many things. So we end up having our our showdown. I mean, Jean wakes up. Well, the Nabari come. They attack the train that has Xavier's people, Magneto's people, all collared and restrained. They're released. They fight. All's good, and you know it it's not bad. Not they were well done scenes. They just lacked something I don't know that I had in First Class and Days of Future Past for sure, and some of Apocalypse. Um, and then again we have the final confrontation with Jean and Jessica Chastain's character, where she begins losing control again, but then takes off into space with her, obliterates her, and that's the last we see of Jean, Phoenix, whatnot. Well, Jean. And then we get, I guess, again a little skip. I don't know if it's supposed to be a couple weeks or months or whatever. Back at the school, everything's fine. You know, we see Xavier in France. I'm guessing Paris, but I'm not sure what city. But in France, Magneto comes up to him. With the chessboard. Obviously, their ever-present chess games. Um, to set it up and everything, offers him a place with him, or to save his life, offer him a place with him, I guess, as Charles saved his life before. And yeah, that's just kind of it. And then we see, an image of, the phoenix in the sky, and that's it. I mean, that's it. And I'm just like, again, not a bad movie, not a great movie either, as far as X-Men ones goes. Not the worst, but nowhere near the best. It was just okay. It was okay. And I just wish they would have done more. Like I said, merger, no merger. Whether that had to do with it or, I mean, again, a lot of the stuff Simon Kinberg already had. That it was something that could have been expanded over a couple movies. Because again, the Phoenix slash Dark Phoenix saga is truly an epic thing. In the comics, in the cartoon, I mean, like I said, it was I think a 4 or 5 part episode arc. Um, so yeah. Now I will say just my last thing, if you will, about gripings, it's just about character usage, and then it's kind of like my thoughts on where we might go forward. So one thing, and I understand it's mainly focusing on Jean and whatever, which is kind of also Kinberg's explanation on why they veered away from the intergalactic aspect with the Shi'ar, the Scrolls, the Kree, which maybe there was some legal stuff there, but but at least with the Shi'ar, which are X-Men through and through. So there was that black that extra character, and then of the X-Men that we've just met one movie ago in Apocalypse, well, except for Quicksilver. Oh, okay. Well, I mean, like, because remember when Beast and Raven are talking at the beginning of the movie, there is a comment which I actually thought about earlier today, um, that they're the only ones left from the first class, which is interesting. And then, but even out of the newer class, we don't really get a lot. I mean, we see, some stuff during, the fight scenes, which are good, with each of them, Cyclops, Storm, Nightcrawler, which has a very nice, action scene, kind of a la X2, but different, you know. Um, but still, we just met them in this last movie where what was all going on. Not a ton of in Apocalypse, not a ton of character development. So it would have been nice to see more. I mean, as far as Scott and Jean's relationship, and hence why it would mean so much, the dissolving of that. Um, Quicksilver, I mean, out fairly quickly in the movie, and the Quicksilver scenes from in Days of Future Past and Apocalypse, I was hoping, I knew this movie was going to be different than the others, But why couldn't I mean the Quicksilver scenes are some of the best freaking scenes of these X-Men movies. Um, I'm trying to remember, like, I think the one in First Class, what was the song that played? I think Time in a Bottle or something like that. And then, of course, in Apocalypse, Sweet Dreams, which, I've watched both multiple times, but especially Sweet Dreams because I love the song and then the imagery with his scene. And we don't get that again this time. I don't know whether they thought it would be redundant or didn't serve the story or whatever, but I thought that was kind of a missed opportunity as again that's one of the things that I know people universally love the Quicksilver scenes. Um, so there's that. Freaking Jubilee's not even in here. Again, I mean, she was introduced as not a main character in the last one, but a character of note in the last one. Even though we didn't get to see her like really use her powers or anything, and she's not even in this one, and that's really which again, not completely surprising because you even take that last, you know, well, again, the last parts of Apocalypse, the battles and stuff, she's not, part of it. And, with their more comic-y type suit, she's not part of it. So it's not surprising, but again, it would have been nice to see her. And, you know, as like on my way home, I was listening to Collider's spoiler review, and again, Dorian made a point again that the X-Men franchise seems to love to crap on Jubilee. I mean, seriously, because again, I know a lot of people might think she's a whatever character, but she was a prominent part of the animated series, which I know many people know and love. Comic wise, because of her relationship with Wolverine mainly. I mean, she's always been a notable character, be it as one of the X-Men to or part of Generation X or, other things afterwards. The whole, vampire thing and everything later in the comics. It never quite really did it for me, but again, what I've known because over the last, decade or so, comics have only been my foray into the comics and their storylines have only been here or there. I usually wait for trade paperbacks or collections. But anyways, um, but again, Jubilee has been a a a character, a well-known character, part of the X universe for such a long time. I mean, again, X Men 244, her introduction. I mean, I have it upstairs, you know, and so for her to be Shatan, in these movies again, the original X Men movie, we briefly see her, or in the classroom, and X2 we see her a little bit more. Again, no, or the scenes kind of depicting her powers cut, so very little speaking, and then in X2 when they're rescued from Alkali Lake, she's there when Nightcrawler rescues them, but not much. Then I'm trying to remember. I can't even remember offhand if she was in Last Stand or not. I need to revisit it. But anyways, then of course not in First Class, obviously. Um, Days of Future Past, no. And then she's reintroduced again because the timeline is all skewed and everything in Apocalypse, which I liked her, and she was more the mall rat, 80s, 90s baby, mall baby. Of course, complete look, her, yellow jacket and shorts and whatnot, glasses. But again, even though she was more of a character along with Nightcrawler as Nightcrawler, Jean, and Scott, new recruits. They had their little time and everything. Um, but we did not get to see her in the scheme of things being part of the X-Men. And then to have nothing in here is no love for Jubilee, who was always one of my favorite characters, honestly. But anyways, um, like I said, between that, like I said, it was nice to see Dazzler for like a moment, like three shots. But it's all cool to have a cameo and everything. But if we don't see anything that other than seeing her just kind of, you know, Euphoria dancing around. And again, like I said, I don't know if all that was supposed to be just the light surrounding her was supposed to be a demonstration of her light, her powers, or that was just from the fire or whatnot. Um, but it would have been nice to see more of her, especially since again, comic wise speaking, Dazzler was again not an integral part of the Dark Phoenix story, but a good part of the beginnings of the Dark Phoenix storyline. So, again, nice nod to have her in there, but not to have her do or say anything was kind of like, eh. And, especially like I said, there was that one scene, if I remember right, in Apocalypse, I can't remember whether it was deleted or not, where again, they're in the record store and they get a Dazzler record. Um, it would have been nice if we had some Dazzler action because again, she's got no love at all in this, and of course, then there's Dazzler, Longshot, Multiverse. I'm talking comics and everything. So much stuff that could be mined, but you know, they did not, I guess, use them like they could have. It was nice to see Storm have a little action and everything, which I know a lot of people love Alexandra Shipp Storm and would have loved to see more of her, be it her own movie or another X-Men movie. And that's the thing. We'll never know exactly what Fox's deal was. I mean, plans were as far as if they were going to have something else after Dark Phoenix, or that was kind of going to be it because we have New Mutants coming out, um, or what, which we'll get to New Mutants in a second. Again, the whole thing now that Disney owns uh, the Fox properties, they're all back to Marvel proper. What, along with Fantastic Four, what are they going to do now going forward? Because again, and Feige I trust. I mean, Kevin Feige has done great stuff with, of course, the Avengers properties and whatnot. So I have no doubt that if he does something for the Fantastic Four or X Men, it's going to be good. I mean, not it'll be, of course, okay at least. Like the MCU movies, even the lesser ones, they're okay to good. None of them that I can think of are none are terrible. Even though some people would disagree with that. Anyways, so you know, I guess we'll see what's going on with their because unless they decided to do some multiverse thing, which Spider-Man Far From Home the trailers seem to indicate that the multiverse is coming, and from Avengers Endgame, we had talks of all the timelines and everything. Um, so we shall see. I mean, what they do with the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, but like I said, I think all those that cast is gone. So, again, we'll completely reboot, introduce mutants however they choose to do it. Um, and as for New Mutants, which again, I think it's supposed to come out in August. I forget the exact date. But, the question is, what are they doing with New Mutants? So is it still going to be set in the universe of the X-Men that we have known and had for these now uh, X-Men 2, Less Than, First Class, Days of Future Past, Apocalypse. Okay, 7 X-Men proper movies, and then again you have the 3 Wolverine movies, the 2 Deadpool movies. Um, so that's what 10, 12, 12. So for these 12 movies that we've had, um, you know, is it going to be in that universe, or will they use this? Because again, it has to go through still has to go through some reshoots. They said again, what is it going to be now for the? At first, it was to make it more comical, less horror, or then back more horror again. I just wonder, are they going to use it as a way to bring them into the MCU somehow, and reshoots, redo the story, or like I said, will it just be a completely different standalone thing that happened to be in the X-Men timeline universe or something completely different. I don't know. It's all up in the air. Who knows? So I don't know. I would have liked to see more from this movie as far as the storyline and how they did things, and more in general. Like if they had split it up into the two movies or whatever. But it is what it is. So is X-Men Dark Phoenix worth seeing? It's worth seeing because, like I said, it's not terrible. Um, but if you do see it, I would recommend, like, again, matinee or something that's going to be lower cost. And definitely, again, when it comes to VOD or streaming or whatever, which again, about 3 month time frame. And from from most people's reaction now, the feelings of X-Men, I have a feeling this will be one of those in 3 months or less deals. Anyway, so those are my thoughts, my review, if you will, or hitting the points of X-Men and giving my thoughts on them. There's probably something I'm forgetting, and as soon as I stop the camera, I'll be like, oh crap, I meant to talk about that. But anyways, um, so let any of you who have seen X-Men Dark Phoenix feel free to let me know what you think as well about the movie, about my review reaction to it, and just whatever. And as always, thanks for watching.